All right, welcome in to this MPW Digital Blue Sky Extra. I'm Chase Parham, just flying solo here for a little bit. Not gonna be on with you too long, but wanted to connect, wanted to talk to you guys a little bit. It is official. Ole Miss in the college football playoff. The Rebels are the number 6 seed, really as expected, and they will face the number 11 seed Tulane Green Wave in one of a couple rematches in the first round. We've got days, we've got times, we've got what is about to be the largest, biggest, most consequential sporting event in Mississippi State history. The state, not Mississippi State. So Ole Miss and Tulane coming up 2:30. 2:30 has been a good kickoff time for the Rebels in recent years. It is going to be the time for this one, college football playoff. Again, Ole Miss and Tulane, 2:30 on that Saturday. That is December the 20th for the opening round of the college football playoff. There's one game on December 19th, three games on December 20th. We'll just got to go through all of it here for a little bit. Is the plan? As always, thanks for any super chats. Let me put a little link up. Let's see here. Again, you can send a Venmo if you want to do that. I'm not asking for anything, but if you just don't want to pay the man, you want to do it that way, you can feel free to send the Venmo in that way. Let me put this in and link it real quick in the thing. Give me 1 second for a couple housekeeping items that I did not go ahead and do. Seeing you guys' thoughts, and frankly, you're having a lot of high class problems right now. Some wanting to play Virginia, some wanting some different draws on down the line. But the big thing is Ole Miss is one of 12 teams in this as the bracket finally came in here a little bit ago after ESPN just bombed as they do every year. I guess commercials, TV, money, all this different reasons. They just compared to what happens for March Madness with basketball, it is an abomination of a of an announcement show. It's terrible in so many different ways. So again, give me 1 second here, and then we'll get into it. I forgot to do just a couple quick items, but that's okay. We're good. All right. Please capitalize. All right, good. There we go. Just want to do that real quick. Yeah, I mean, look, there's no doubt about that. Playing Tulane again is not as fun, even from a coverage standpoint for us, for me, as some other teams. But if you're Ole Miss, look, you're trying to get a draw, and I think that's where you start here is when we're discussing what this bracket looks like for Ole Miss. It's a phenomenal setup. It's because again, you're going to have to play good teams. I was surprised that Ohio State stayed at two. I still thought, even giving what happened yesterday with Indiana and Ohio State, that being a close game, I still expected Georgia to move up to two there. So I guess that's a surprise. You get a worse second round game, but Ole Miss gets a lot of respect here, and I think that's one of the key takeaways is that Ole Miss was much closer to five than seven. And no matter who you're playing, and I get it. I mean, I agree with Big Ben. Two rematches to start the playoffs is weird, but I prefer that to bracket manipulation. I'm completely good with, and look, there's plenty to not like about the committee. What I do like about the committee, though, in this instance, is avoiding manipulation to make it a better TV product, to create away from these rematches. You've got Alabama and Oklahoma in an 8-9 game, and you have Ole Miss and Tulane in a 6-11 game. But if you're Ole Miss, any manipulation could have been devastating from an expectation standpoint of your likelihood to move forward. Because just as easy as you could have moved to five and played James Madison and been a big favorite, a two touchdown plus favorite at that point, you also could have been moved to seven against Texas A&M with fairly similar resumes. Texas A&M, instead of Tulane, instead of James Madison, they get Miami, and that's a that they get Miami at 11 a.m. too. It's an 11 a.m. game. It's Miami, so I actually that's one of the things I like most about this setup and what the committee did today was having the rematches as far as fairness, not trying to be too cute for TV purposes, to end up screwing teams because you're so obsessed with moving them around in that way. I thought maybe that beyond anything else, that was one of the big things that was a positive takeaway from looking at this bracket was the rematch thing. Even though obviously, yes, Ole Miss beat Tulane 45-10 earlier this season. They are a 17.5 point favorite over the Green Wave right now. Let me get a couple different links to you. If you're in our chat, if you are listening to this in podcast form, the college football playoff year, it is alive and well, courtesy of College Corner. So I'm throwing a link in the stream right now. You can go to collegecornerstore.com, go to collections, college football playoff gear is right there and ready to go. I'm kind of browsing through it as we're talking. So yeah, look, we'll get into a couple different things with the bracket. We'll go over it a little bit again. I'm not going to stay with you a ton because we have a lot of work to do today as well. Pete Golding is going to talk to the media at 3 o'clock. So we'll have coverage from whatever Pete says after that. But 3 o'clock today for his press conference. I think John Summerall's press conference has been over for, I don't know, 25, 30 minutes, something like that. Yeah, I put that in there from College Corner right there. So appreciate that. Got a great uniform game. Tulane has awesome uniforms. Ole Miss has awesome uniforms, so good, should be good to go there. Marine Rebel, thanks for your super chat. If I told you before the season Pete would coach a playoff game before Lane, what would you have thought? I would have thought that Ole Miss's season went remarkably poor and that Pete, on the offensive side, and Pete got a job and somewhere next year got that team into the playoff. I would have thought that would have been the only world back in August or September. That's what I thought. That's what I would have thought was something along those lines. Yeah, I could never have envisioned what has actually transpired here is that Pete Golding is going to be the head coach of Ole Miss when they take the field on December the 20th against Tulane in the playoff here at 2:30. So let's run through it a little quick. You'll know this by now, but our first round matchups, you get number 12 seed James Madison at number 5 Oregon. The winner will face number 4 Texas Tech. It's the one thing that I missed when I was trying to predict what was going to happen. I thought that quarterfinal game from this pod would be in Dallas. It's not. It's going to be in Miami. So Miami is where Texas Tech is headed. They will get the winner of James Madison and Oregon. James Madison getting in courtesy of Duke last night. They knock off Virginia in overtime. Virginia could have won their way in. Had Virginia won, the Cavaliers would be in Oxford right now. That's where it would be. It would be Virginia against Ole Miss, and then it would be Tulane against Oregon in a 5-12 game. Would have avoided at least that rematch from that standpoint. Instead, James Madison was ranked 25th coming into the week. Once Duke won, Duke has 5 losses. They were not ranked. James Madison, courtesy of being a guaranteed automatic qualifier as a conference champion, ranked higher than Duke. They're in James Madison and Oregon. I expect the Ducks to handle this one without too much problem. Let me pull up the opening lines. I've got those real quick. And the opening line on Oregon and James Madison is 20.5. So the Ducks are favored at Autzen by 20.5 against James Madison. And this is going to be a night game on that Saturday. This is the last game of the 4. So James Madison, Oregon, that is a 20.5-point line, and it is kicking off at 6:30 Central there on Saturday. Again, number 11 seed Tulane, number 6 seed Ole Miss. They're going to go at 2:30 on Saturday, and Ole Miss opens as a 17.5-point favorite. Again, these two teams have met already this year. 17.5 points there, 45-10 the first time around. Ole Miss really suffocated Jake Retzlaff and Tulane on the defensive side of the ball. Pete Golding having a chance to do that again. The opening over-under is 58.5 on this game. So we've got 17.5 and then 58.5 here in this one. Miami and Texas A&M, from a name team standpoint, that's a big game. That's going to be, again, College Station, 11 a.m. there on the 20th, and the opening line on this game is Texas A&M minus 3.5. Texas A&M minus 3.5 is the spot here. So, look, I don't hate the decision to have Miami in over Notre Dame in a vacuum. In a vacuum of simply They got in, Notre Dame didn't. They won the game, even though it was back in week one. I understand it and I get that. It's how the committee does it that is ridiculous. Is that they argue that playoffs, that head to head doesn't matter, and they put them in these weird spots. And then here at the very end, when they get linked up next to each other, suddenly that was this huge predictor in two teams that were idle swap spots, and that gets Miami into the playoff. It's asinine in that way. I think Notre Dame's a better team. I think Notre Dame was still trying to figure out its quarterback situation in week one when those two teams played. Miami probably has more talent, but Miami screws up games. That's what Miami does. So I would have put Notre Dame in despite the head to head. I don't have any problem with it. I think the head to head should matter. I get it. No issues. But from a straight standpoint of the way the committee goes about it, that's ridiculous. I don't like it at all. I think it is asinine. Ethan, thanks for the super chat. Says I think there'll be a lot of people who would normally don't care rooting for us because of what happened with Lane. Fair to say, yeah. Well, I mean, Ole Miss will have a little bit of a national. Hey, I want those kids to do well standpoint. There's no doubt about that. I think that is very true. Let's see. All right, winner plays Georgia. We'll get there in a minute. Miami, no, sorry, that's Ole Miss-Tulane. Miami, Texas A&M, winner playing Ohio State. So hell of a draw here for Texas A&M. This is what I'm talking about because as bad of a matchup in some ways, just because of how talented they are that Georgia is for Ole Miss, I think Ohio State might have been a worse matchup. And it's one that Ole Miss would see in the semis if they got past Georgia and Ohio State wins their quarterfinal against Miami or Texas A&M. But Ohio State, the number 2 seed, they face the winner of Miami and Texas A&M. That is going to be in the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. Let's see, 11 a.m. again for A&M and Miami, and then Alabama, Oklahoma, 7 o'clock on the 19th. The first game, the winner gets Indiana in the Rose Bowl, so that'll be in Norman. Alabama against the Sooners. That's a rematch. Oklahoma has beaten Alabama already this season. And what we found out is despite all the teeth gnashing and all the rigmarole, the conference championships meant nothing in these two power conferences. Ohio State stays at goes from 1 to 2, just simply flips places, doesn't lose any further ground. And Alabama doesn't even move. Alabama was 9 last week. Alabama is 9 this week. Miami is the one that came in at 10. I think there was some poll mechanisms to that because that allowed Miami and Notre Dame to still be right next to each other, and that made the head-to-head argument more palatable than a team being in between them. So I think that is where the committee did some manipulation, was keeping Alabama at 9 from that standpoint. Conference tiebreakers need to be changed. BGN Lewis says, look, I would be for that. The problem is figuring out how you do it. These conference championship games make a lot of money. In some ways, them just not being of significance or only being in positive significance is probably not the worst thing in the world. It's not perfect. I've got issues, but I do think that in some ways it makes more sense than some of the alternatives that are there. I think like back in the BCS days, there were at least a couple conferences that just had their top BCS ranked teams go as the tiebreaker, and that makes sense. But some of the issue here is that still makes you susceptible in some ways. Just like, because, I mean, here again, BGN says first tiebreaker should be ranking. Okay, well, let's play that out. That would have put Ole Miss and Georgia in the SEC championship game in the SEC. Ole Miss, second ranked SEC team at 6. Georgia, obviously, higher. Georgia does to Ole Miss what they did to Alabama last night. We would be having the same conversation. Does it knock Ole Miss out of a home game simply because they played the game? And that's where I don't think it's fair. I don't think teams should be able to sit on their couch and elevate their standing while another team goes and plays an excellent team in an extra game and suffers. I just don't. Call me SEC homer or whatever you want to do. I don't think that makes sense. I think in that way, the committee is doing the right thing, and that leads to Alabama, again, at number 8, Oklahoma. Very good Indiana team. Fun Indiana team awaiting in the Rose Bowl. Again, 7 p.m., December 19th on that Friday for those games. Ole Miss and Georgia. If Ole Miss beats Tulane, look, it's a hell of a matchup. Tough draw. If you look through the schedule a little bit for Ole Miss would get what is a gift with Tulane. It's not a gimme. Ole Miss is going to play well, but it's a gift compared to the other options. And then you get Georgia, a team that beat Ole Miss by 8 points in Athens earlier this year. Ole Miss scored touchdowns on its first 5 offensive possessions, but could not stop Georgia. Did not stop them all day. So Georgia scored on every offensive possession of consequence in that game. It's a really difficult draw. You'd have Ohio State next, and that would be Ole Miss's first trip if they could find a way to get through 2 wins. That would be a semifinal in the Fiesta Bowl. So looking ahead a little bit, Fiesta Bowl is the setup for that side, if you will, the Ohio State, Miami, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Georgia side, and then Peach Bowl is the spot for Texas Tech, Indiana, James Madison, Oregon, Alabama, Oklahoma. So a route for Ole Miss to where if they were going to make a run and get to the national championship, we're talking about Tulane, Georgia, then Miami, A&M, or Ohio State, and we're talking about Oxford, New Orleans, Phoenix, Glendale, wherever it's at, Fiesta Bowl. That is the route as this is playing out. That is what Ole Miss's road to the national championship would be. Again, the Sugar Bowl, should Ole Miss win, that will be on January the 1st at 7 p.m. on ESPN. So your quarterfinal dates, again, Cotton Bowl. Let's do it again. Cotton Bowl, Ohio State, Miami, Texas A&M. That is going to be December 31st. That's New Year's Eve, 6:30 ESPN. The Orange Bowl, January 1st, morning, 11 a.m. Orange Bowl is going to be Texas Tech, James Madison, Oregon, the teams in that group. January 1st, 3 o'clock, traditional Rose Bowl start. That's Indiana awaiting the winner of Alabama and Oklahoma. You get the whole sunset fourth quarter thing there with the Rose Bowl. And then the final quarterfinal, Sugar Bowl, January 1st, 7 o'clock, ESPN. Semifinal dates, Fiesta Bowl, January 8th, the first one at 6:30 on ESPN. All these are Central Times. And then Peach Bowl, January 9th, the next night, 6:30 on ESPN. The national championship is back in Miami Gardens. This is Hard Rock Stadium, I believe. It is January 19th at 6:30 on ESPN. But again, look, the main takeaways for Ole Miss are very simple. It is that they got a lot of respect here. They were treated fairly. Georgia and Alabama are the ones that caused this 2-3 situation of Ole Miss getting Georgia, Ohio State, quarter, and semi potential on the way to a national championship berth should that come to pass. These home games are incredibly valuable, and getting a home game against a Group of 5 champion who's lost its coach, who's finishing out the tenure, as good as John Summerall is, he's headed to Florida. He's going to be at least some level distracted. And you get a team you beat 45-10 earlier in the year. It's just a phenomenal draw for Ole Miss to get to that quarterfinal round to neutral sites and see what happens. And I know a lot of you guys were worried. I think there was probably some angst going into the day of, especially on Tuesday, of the Lane Kiffin thing. You lose your head coach. Do you fall to 7? Do you fall to 8? Do you get into these much better, well-funded opponents? And instead, that didn't happen. I thought that if you're Ole Miss, and I mean this seriously, as a program, you've got to be pretty excited about how this entire thing played out. There was a respect factor here that matched the analytics and where you were expected or where you could have been ranked throughout this process. And now, look, you get to have a party on January 20th. Again, 2:30 start. Ole Miss hosting a college football playoff game. There's only 4 of those every single year. They are going to be in 3 different SEC sites: Eugene, Oregon; Oxford, Mississippi; College Station, Texas; and Norman, Oklahoma. I talked to somebody around the city and tourism, expected to be 50 to 70 million in economic impact for Oxford, for Lafayette County, for this home games. I haven't seen exactly what is happening in the context of when exactly tickets are being sold, if you can see, if anybody can tell me that. But I do know that season ticket holders will have the ability to honor your season tickets. If you're a season ticket holder, you will have the ability to get those tickets and then move on from there. So don't freak out if you haven't seen that yet. It will happen. It will be fine. All good in that way. Kyle, thanks for the Venmo. Let me get to you real quick. Sorry, I had not gone over there doing it by myself. Here is a little different. Let's see. One second, Kyle. Where can I get one of these hoodies? Yeah, we're getting much closer to the merch situation. Kind of glad you said that. I hope to have some stuff from Horn Legend up pretty soon. I need to talk to those guys here the next couple of days. They also are going to have some college football playoff gear. I need to make sure of that, and then a couple different options for the more hoodie type things as well. So yes, it's coming. Hang with me. I know it's been a bit of a we are not great in the merch area as far as getting that done, but yes, there are plans for those things as we move forward. So thanks for the Venmo. Thanks for the question. Appreciate you as always, Kyle. So yeah, Ole Miss playing a home game. Tulane again. The Green Wave earned their ways in. Dustin, by the way, says season ticket holders will have until the 12th. He read. Okay, so you got 5 days if you're a season ticket holder before they go up the rest of the way. Tulane earned its way in with a win over North Texas on Friday night at Yeoman Stadium in New Orleans. They beat up on North Texas. North Texas coach Eric Morris headed to Oklahoma State. That's how Tulane got in. Again, it's top 5 conference champions. Duke is the 6th. Because they won the ACC, they have 5 losses. They had non-conference losses to Tulane and Connecticut. Yeah, that's one thing I will say. I like Manny Diaz, and I know he was just stumping for his team. But last night, he went so overboard bashing Group of 5 when he lost to 2 of them this season. It wasn't like he just lost a bunch of ACC games and then found his way in because of a tiebreaker. It wasn't that. It wasn't that at all. Instead, he lost to UConn and Tulane. Had he won those games, he would have been ranked higher than James Madison. He would be in the playoff right now. Duke did not miss the playoff because of being in the ACC. Duke missed the playoff because they lost to UConn and Tulane. That's why they missed the playoff. I just thought he went way overboard and overreaching on that last night. It made no sense to me. Congratulations to him. I mean, it's a hell of a story, but they did not deserve to be in the college football playoff. They didn't. James Madison instead under Bob Chesney. He is going to coach the Dukes prior to taking the job at UCLA. That's kind of where we are there on that. Again, a lot of coordinators shifting. Oregon without its offensive and defensive coordinator for the playoffs. Or sorry, they will have them, but they're moving on to other jobs. Obviously, Ole Miss has had tons of flux, but they've got the coordinators. Pete Golding still calling the defense. He will do it from the field, and he's got all the head coach responsibilities. So there is a change there. However, still personnel-wise, there is that, and then Charlie Weiss will be here for the playoff run as we move forward. Number 6 ranking is a great example of the arbitrary cartel opposing a selection committee. BS, they apply missing coaches, missing players against FSU, but not Ole Miss. Why? Because there was a data point. Ole Miss has not played a game. You're just guessing on what Ole Miss will look like without Lane Kiffin, and they tried not to guess. Florida State, you knew exactly what they were, or more importantly, what they were not without Jordan Travis. They were nowhere near the same team. Yeah, people have tried to make those equal, and they just aren't. They're not equal at all. This field is worse without Notre Dame. Notre Dame is definitely one of the best 12 teams in the country. I feel bad for Vanderbilt. I think Vanderbilt's one of the best 12 teams in the country. I am giving real consideration to having Diego Pavia on my Heisman ballot when I do it later today. So I do. I think Notre Dame and Vanderbilt are 2 teams that should have been in this field, but it's the process we have. You know, college football is a completely flawed process. And when you have a completely flawed process, you create issues like this that just have no ability to work out in any logical sense. It's improved. It's better in so many different ways, but it's not perfect. It's not great in any way. By the way, congratulations to Ole Miss to Learfield. Big parts. Ole Miss has a Learfield partner. Ole Miss is there to help with NIL deals and different things. The Trinidad Chambliss AT&T commercial yesterday. It was no negative. I mean, I saw people talking about, hey, if he leaves or something. No. It was a national ad spot that put a ton of focus on Ole Miss. He's wearing an Ole Miss jersey in the commercial. That was a big deal. I think getting that national ad spot on such a high profile day is something that will help Ole Miss moving forward with showing NIL possibilities. It shows a partnership between Ole Miss and Learfield that's very important. It's your quarterback on this 30-second worldwide, national, however you want to put it, mobile phone company, communications company as a face. So credit to Ole Miss, credit to everybody involved with that. That was nothing but a positive yesterday as you're watching. There's no doubt about that. Let's see. Hayden, appreciate you being here. Auburn guy, broken sport with a broken playoff system. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's 100% what it is. Yeah, until I hear that Charlie Weiss is for sure not returning next season, I still think there is a possibility of that. I do. I think that's possible. Now, look, I'm not guaranteeing it. I think I put it at 60% a few days ago. I would probably be a little lower than that, but somewhere in that realm. I do still think that is very much a possibility. Tyler having a little fun here. Chase, do you think Signetti will leave Indiana because of stadium size? Yeah. They don't have enough Heisman stadium sizes. You can't listen to anything that he says because obviously he's lying. There's no doubt about that, of course. Yeah, 100%. Will Affleck be on the field again? I don't know. I assume, but it's a little bit of an assumption. I know that Affleck and Ole Miss are going to have a deal to some level together. They have agreed on a deal together. As far as that always being on the field, I don't know where that stands. I know there is interest in that continuing here for the playoff run. My guess, again, it is a guess, it is mildly educated, is that Affleck will again be on the field for the playoff. But it is a complete guess that is just mildly educated. Okay, Tyler says Affleck can't be on the field for the playoffs. So I apologize. He would know, Tyler Jordan jumping in our stream. I did not know that, so never mind. As far as moving forward, again, I know they have a partnership. I do not know what's constituting that, but Tyler would definitely be a point man for information on that. And he says rules from the network was his understanding on that. So we will take his word and we will move forward with that. Speaking of Tyler, appreciate him. Again, he gave another Realtree helmet out a couple weeks ago to one of our listeners, and we will get those out as soon as possible. There's a chance that Ole Miss could end up wearing those helmets throughout the playoffs or at some point during the playoffs, so a little bit of a delay there on that. But again, appreciate Realtree.com, and appreciate Tyler and all the jerks, including Bill, there for that help. Yeah, CFP apparently does not give Ole Miss rights to sell ads at their home site games. There are some generic things that I've kind of wondered about here as far as what's game day going to look like compared to a normal home game. We'll get a lot of these answers as time goes on, but all this kind of makes sense. You have to be careful with signage. You have to be careful with what ad availabilities are there for the home team. Although I do think you're going to be able to have a normal home environment, if you will. You know, in baseball, we've seen this over a little bit of a change over the years where now you can do normal walkout songs. You can play, for the most part, your music at the same times as long as you manipulate it a little bit. And I know I was talking to somebody with the university a few days ago. He said that from a straight atmosphere standpoint or what you've kind of come to expect from an environment standpoint, it will look very similar for this playoff games. So I think that you're not going to notice a lot of difference here when it comes for the game in Oxford on December 20th as far as that goes. So again, glad we cleared that up. Appreciate the guys in the stream between Tyler and got a couple text messages from really knowledgeable people as well. So I appreciate having a little heads up there on that. Again, we'll hear from Kiffin. I'm sorry. Wow. Big mistake. See, right there. I still say Redskins occasionally. Big mistake. We will not hear from him. We will hear from Pete Golding today, 3 o'clock. Throw me in the doghouse. I'm sorry. I probably should edit this out of the podcast when I post it up as a stream, but I won't. I'll leave it in there and let you guys call me idiots. Pete Golding, 3 o'clock, is going to talk to us from the media. So we'll have that to you, Rebels 24/7. I've got a base story up right now with all the details as far as times, channels, brackets, those things. and then plenty of coverage as we move forward on that. Again, John Summerall's already had his press conference. Our Tyler Comas was on that feed, and we'll have coverage there at Rebels 24/7 as well, and a full week at NPW Digital. Hopefully, several weeks of playoff talk with MPW Digital. Neil is back in at least the Mid-South. He was in New York. He had coverage, really great coverage, exclusive coverage from Ole Miss last night. Their loss to St. John's in hoops. He was in New York at Madison Square Garden for that. So we'll have more as that plays on with as far as the week goes. But again, we'll have normal podcast coverage also starting back here tomorrow. But I definitely wanted to get in with you guys, kind of share some thoughts, see what you guys were saying, just sort of hang out. But it's huge news for Ole Miss. It is a huge deal, and yeah, the bracket shapes up pretty difficult as time goes on. But that's tomorrow's problem. Right now, I think a day for Ole Miss really to just celebrate itself a little bit. I talked to Denson Hollis, the CEO of the Ole Miss Athletics Foundation, on Friday. That podcast is up. And I asked him, had it sunk in that Ole Miss was 11-1? And he said yes in some ways. But again, you won 11 football games. You were hosting. You're one of 4 teams to host a college football playoff game. And how far this program has come is really remarkable, and how this program is stabilizing itself through the hell that a former head coach put it through in so many different ways over the past 3 weeks. So that's credit to a lot of people. It's credit to fans who are so invested and part of the alignment that we continue to talk about with Ole Miss and Ole Miss football and where things are headed. So again, Pete Golding will speak to the media today. We will talk to Pete throughout the process leading up to now, 13 days away from Ole Miss and Tulane, December 20th, 2:30 there on one of the other, it's the TNT True thing, the way the games are shaped out. But nonetheless, a lot of you guys will be in the stadium. We'll get all the TV stuff ironed out as time goes on. But yeah, not one of the ESPN ones there for that. But that's cool. All fine as time moves on. Again, Fiesta Bowl would be a semifinal. Sugar Bowl would be a quarterfinal when the Georgia Bulldogs await in that one. So again, see you in the morning. We will have plenty of coverage, Rebels 24/7. In the meantime, appreciate the super chats. Appreciate everybody else that is in the stream. Great to catch up and just get some particulars out of the way. And now we dive right in. College football playoff coverage involving your Ole Miss Rebels, the 6 seed facing the 11 seed Tulane Green Wave. So back to the morning. Take care, and we'll talk to you again